Cheers, guys, and welcome to Uncle Scott's Pancast podcast. How are those tariffs working out for you guys? Holy cow. My 401k turned into a 201k. It was taken out behind the woodshed for an old school ass whooping this week. We are going to talk today a little bit about tariffs, especially in regards to imports and what it means for cookware prices. I checked in with Matfer. I have an update from Matfer on the carbon steel recall, as well as what they are doing with tariffs and how it regards their prices. We're going to talk a little bit about cookbooks, different styles of cookbooks, Julia Child versus Staub. We've got poll results. We're going to check in on the old Komo grain mill that I reviewed about 6 years ago now, see how that is working, cast of thousands, and more. Let's jump in and get started. Let's start with the tariffs. And if you haven't been paying attention, the United States put various tariff levels on different countries, different rates for different countries, a minimum of 10%, and then on up from there. I think for Europe, I believe it's 25%. And at some point that is going to affect at least a lot of the cookware we talk about around here. We talk a lot about Matfer, Mauviel, De Bouillet, Le Creuset, Le Creuset, Staub, on and on. Falk, lots of stuff from Europe that we really like here at Uncle Scott's Kitchen. So at some point, it's going to affect things. I did some just cursory checking online, and I haven't seen any prices going up yet. Thank goodness. Now, I have mixed feelings personally on the tariffs. I know we're going through some short-term pain, and I hope that short-term pain will turn into long-term gain down the road. Back in the day, when I was getting my business degree in college, I would have been a hardcore free market guy. And the older I get and the more time I spend out in the real world, a few more battle scars, I realize that what makes sense on paper doesn't always transfer directly to the real world. Free market, if it's somebody making something in Michigan and there's someone else making similar product in Canada, and both societies are relatively, not exactly, but relatively similar, then maybe the free trade makes sense there. If we're making something in America and all of a sudden we lose those jobs and those products are outsourced to a sweatshop, and people are paying slave wages, and I know some companies that outsource, they have anti-slavery statements on their websites. Why would you need an anti-slavery statement on your website? Are the slave factories, are they one step above that now and they're merely sweatshops? Is a politician being paid off somewhere? Or there's shady factory operators? Do the sweatshops have OSHA and Social Security and Medicare and environmental laws and minimum wages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Or are we just letting some people get rich by outsourcing stuff to sweatshops for cheap labor and hosing the American worker in the meantime? So in an academic sense, I'm sure free trade makes great sense on paper. In the real world, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Now, just hypothetically, let's take the case of a French-made carbon steel frying pan. It could be a De Bouillet, a Matfer, a Mauviel, any of them, and use that as an example. $100 retail price. If a 25% tariff is instituted, does that mean that that retail price goes from $100 to $125 overnight? It does not. There's more to it than that. First, I think a lot of the knee-jerk hysteria on the internet is applying the tariff to final retail prices paid here in the United States. I don't believe it is quite that easy. For one thing, I think the tariff would be applied to the wholesale import cost rather than the final retail price. So just spitballing here, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say they're selling these pans for $100. Occasionally they go on sale, 25% off, get them for $75, $80. But let's say that pan all in for the import price costs $50 to the American wholesaler. Then the American company that imports the pan, they've got all their costs. They got salaries, they've got taxes, insurance, warehouses, marketing, on and on and on. But let's say they buy it for $50 and sell it for 100. I think the tariff would be applied to that 50. So 25% on the $50, it bumps that up to 62.50. Now, keeping the other overhead costs the same, does the retail price go up to $112.50? Maybe. Maybe the next time they do a sale, instead of a 25% off sale where you would have gotten that $100 pan for 75 bucks, maybe it's only a 15% off. Maybe it's only a 20% off, so it's $80, $85. Maybe they can eat a little bit of that increased cost. Maybe it eats into their margins a little bit. But I don't think the entire tariff, penny for penny, is passed directly to the consumer immediately. Further, let's take a real world example here. Lodge, enameled cast iron. Lodge makes some of their enameled cast iron over in China, and they've also come out with an American-made series. The 6-quart enameled cast iron Dutch oven they make in China, about 80 bucks right now. It usually lists for around 90. The same size Dutch oven made in the United States, and they claim to be the only maker of enameled cast iron in the United States these days, $299. So about 300 versus about 80. So $220 more for the American-made product, which is absolutely stunning to me, but that really illustrates how big of a margin there really is when it comes to outsourcing. What if, just hypothetically, what if there were a 100% tariff on that Chinese-made enamel cast iron? Again, let's assume they're selling it for 80. Maybe it costs them 50 to import it. $100% tariff would put that at 100 plus the $30 markup. It would still be $130 for that Dutch oven, and the American made would still be $300. So there would still be a huge cost advantage for outsourcing, even with a 100% tariff, as crazy as that sounds. And that leads into this week's poll question. At what point, at what price level would tariffs have to rise to before you would switch over to the American-made product? Say the American-made product was $100 and the import was $50 with the tariffs, say it was $65. Would you switch? $75, would you switch? $80, $85, $90, or would it have to rise all the way to $100 before you would switch from the imported product to the similar American-made product? Or substitute your home country if you're in Italy, France, Norway, South Korea, wherever. Insert your home country there and let me know in that poll, and I'll put a link to that poll below. Now, along the lines of this tariff stuff, I really do have mixed feelings on the issue. And what I want to bring up here is the case of Henredon furniture. It's probably Henredon, but it's Henredon. It was craftsman-made American furniture made in North Carolina for decades and decades and decades. And back during the internet bubble, when money was fairly easy, I bought a couple of pieces of Henredon, and they were with the level of quality you might find them in a castle for, $6,000-$7,000 for a dining room table without the chairs. And it had hand inlaid stuff and just absolute top quality American craftsmanship. And that Henredon brand name in the furniture world, it is akin to maybe what Rolex might be in the watch world. In the 2000s, the outsourcing of manufacturing started to affect them more and more and more. They moved some of their production overseas, and over the decades here, they've gone bankrupt. And the craftsmen who really built the brand and the equity in the brand in North Carolina, they are long since laid off. Those factories are shut down. And now the brand name still exists. And from what I can tell, poking around online, and I bring this up because I saw the other day that you can buy some Henredon furniture at Costco these days. Now, I still buy Henredon furniture, but I get online and I buy the used stuff from the year 2000 on back because it is heirloom quality stuff, and especially the stuff that's hardwood. I don't buy any cloth used furniture, but the hardwood stuff, at most, it usually has a scratch or two, and with a little bit of furniture polish and some cleaning, you get what might have been a $5,000 or $6,000 piece of furniture 20 years ago. It'd be $15,000 or $20,000 these days if you could even find it for $250. So this house is furnished with a lot of used high-end furniture. That's beside the point, though. I noticed you could get Henredon furniture now at Costco. And from the poking around I did online, and from what I can tell, someone has bought that brand name. The company's gone. They're no longer in North Carolina, no longer made in America. And there is essentially a contract manufacturer with factories in Vietnam. And say Costco wants a run of Henredon sofas, they'll talk to that manufacturer and do a run of Henredons. And there are other brand names in similar situation to Henredon. So a different retailer might want a run of some other brand of furniture that is now defunct that used to have a high-end brand name. And they'll do a run for them. It's the same factory though, but it's in Vietnam. And this is subjective, but I just got to tell you, a $900 Henredon couch at Costco made in Vietnam is not the same as a Henredon piece of furniture made by the craftsman in America in North Carolina 30 years ago. It's just not the same thing. And it's almost not fair that Costco or a contract manufacturer or some other big corporation is still reaping the brand equity from what those workers, the American workers, created 30, 40 years ago. So what happened to those craftsmen in North Carolina? Did they lose their homes? Did they lose their wives? Did they become meth heads or alcoholics? Did they have to go on welfare? Did it ruin their lives? Maybe saving $4,000 or $5,000 on a couch at Costco is fantastic. And here's the other side of it. It is absolutely fantastic to save $4,000 or $5,000 on an item, because then you got $4,000 or $5,000 you can spend on something else. So for that one transaction, the outsourcing is fantastic. If you look at the entire picture, what it does to communities and factories and craftsmen and families and our economy overall, I'm not so sure that outsourcing is all that great. And then add in the fact that we run deficits, and a lot of this stuff we buy, we are buying with borrowed money. Maybe something costs a little bit more if we make it in America, but maybe we get more of a multiplier effect. Say that $4,000 extra it might cost to make something in America. Do you get a 4, 5, 6x multiplier as that money circulates throughout a community that you don't get if the $1,000 just goes overseas? And yet another side to this debate is, what about the factory workers in these overseas factories? I have no problem with someone getting up and going to a job and doing a hard day's work, whether he's an American, a Vietnamese person, a Chinese person, Italian, French person, on and on. So we got no problem with people doing work anywhere. I think the problem is when these factories are borderline sweatshops. I know some of the contract manufacturers, for example, have anti-slavery declarations on their websites. And that's a great thing on one hand. On the other hand, why do you need an anti-slavery policy? Is something going on? Maybe their factories are not slave factories. Maybe they're one step higher. Maybe they are sweatshops. And maybe those people have crappy jobs with no environmental protections, no labor protections, no overtime, child labor laws, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, wages, minimum wage, on and on. Are there borderline sweatshops with a bunch of shady labor practices and people are getting paid off, maybe the factory owners, maybe politicians, on and on, just so we can save a few bucks on a transaction here in America? So on paper, I get it. Free trade makes a lot of sense. In the real world, I think there's just more to it than that, and I'm not 100% sold on it. Maybe some tariffs are good. Maybe some tariffs are bad. Maybe the level needs to be adjusted. I don't know. I think it will all shake out, but I hope that this short-term pain we're going through right now is worth it in the long run. Okay, for those of you who haven't canceled and turned off the video so far, every time I mention anything controversial, I get X number of people that say, I've had it, I can't take this anymore, I'm out of here, I am unsubscribing. That's fine if they want to self-select. The rest of us here can talk like normal people. Let's see, I checked in with Matfer this past week on both the carbon steel recall and also what's going on with tariffs. I also checked in with several other companies, Matfer was the first to respond. So I'm going to give a little shout out here to Matfer. Thanks for getting back in touch with me. First, on the tariffs, I asked them what they're doing with tariffs. They mentioned they have 20,000 SKUs and all kinds of cookware, well beyond the carbon steel skillets we talked about around here. And they say at the moment they're taking a wait and see approach. So with the tariffs, they have not hiked prices just yet, and they're talking with all their other suppliers and partners and trying to figure out what to do. So no price increase yet. Also checked in with them on the carbon steel recall issue. As you guys hopefully are aware, in France, a few months ago, Matfer carbon steels were recalled, and recently Moviel carbon steel pans were recalled. And what happened was there was a regional government in France where the Matfer factory was located. They did a test on the carbon steel in which they boiled an acid in a carbon steel pan for 2 hours and found that the pan leached out some metal, which is not surprising. A different region adopted the same test and used it on Moviel. And of course, Moviel pans did the same thing. And I don't know why this is news to anyone. Carbon steel and cast iron, everybody knows they are reactive metals, and you don't cook with acids in them, and they need to be seasoned on. And that has been known for decades, if not centuries, but apparently it's an issue now. And they said it's possible, there are other manufacturers in France, that it's possible that those regions could adopt the same tests. And he says, and I agree with this, I think I said it in the last Pancast, I think there is no way any carbon steel or cast iron pan, for that matter, could pass this test where they boil acid. You're not supposed to do that. Matfer says they stand by their statement that the testing methodology applied by the DGCCRF, which is the government agency of Isère, which consists of a high acidity foodstuff test, represents intentional misuse of the product. And here I agree with Matfer. I think boiling an acid in a carbon steel skillet for 2 hours, you're not supposed to do that. So that is kind of intentional misuse of the product. And they mentioned that it contradicts their usage instructions, which include proper seasoning and avoidance of high acidity food. He also points out that Moviel's response has been very similar to Matfer's in that they did what they had to do. They recalled the pans in France. But he reiterates that both sets of pans, the Matfers and the Moviels, meet the European standards, and they also meet the United States standards, so neither were recalled in the United States. And he says so far their legal challenges to the test results that led to the recalls have been unsuccessful. And this has kind of led to some conspiracy theories, and conspiracy theories, they're all the rage these days. Why should we be left out here in the carbon steel world? Is there someone who makes nonstick pans? Are they ticked off at carbon steel, eating into their business maybe, and they want to get some of the carbon steel manufacturers in trouble? Did someone tick off a regulator and somebody's getting cracked down upon? You never want to tick off a regulator or anyone in the government if you can help it. Make life easier for yourself. Is someone outside of France going after the French cookware industry? Who knows? But I do know that when it comes to boiling acids in carbon steel, cast iron, these pans have been around for decades and centuries, and it's common knowledge that you don't cook a lot of acidic food in them because you can get a metallic flavor in your food. This is not news, but apparently it is becoming an issue now, and we don't know the exact reason why. What do you guys think? Is there a conspiracy afoot? See a little feedback from you guys. Regular Joe asks, why don't I do some coverage of aluminum skillets? I'm just not interested in aluminum. I'm just one dude, and there are 9 zillion pans in the world. I only have time to focus on the ones I'm interested in, and I don't cook in aluminum cookware. Aluminum core cookware is one thing, but pure aluminum cookware, I don't use it. The April Fool's Day video. I didn't get all of you guys, but I got a lot of you guys. So if you didn't see it, I've got it hidden right now. It's unlisted because I don't want people to think it's real in a non-April Fool's Day situation. given the way people are these days. But what I did was I supposedly seasoned a carbon steel skillet in my freezer instead of my oven. And it had a lot of you guys going for most of the video. Cutter RDB said LMAO. So I got an official LMAO. That one got me for real. Ain't gonna lie. Cool J77 said I have been sniffing way too much vapor during pan seasoning. I like that comment. Redox James 2506 says the freezer reduced his 10-inch skillet to a 6-incher. So a little bit of a shrinkage joke there. I'm going to bless that. And Nope 145 said you had me until I saw the hairdryer. And Richard Wilford 2418 said you had me until you took out the leaf blower. And I showed using a hairdryer blowing hot air into my freezer and also using a leaf blower for air circulation. So I had you guys going for a while, and I'm already planning for next April Fools as we speak. Just checking around, I haven't seen any tariff increases in cookware prices yet. I did note that Debouille has these guys on sale. This is the Debouille carbon steel crepe pan. I reviewed this guy in 2021, I believe, and it is still in heavy use. We make crepes at least once a week around here, and I really do love this crepe pan. This thing in a set is on sale now for about 58 bucks. I got an affiliate link below if you want to check those out. But if prices are going to go up for tariffs, and these are on sale now, if you're interested in a crepe pan, I would jump on this while you can. And as always, for the love of Pete, use the affiliate shopping link below. Browning meat. In the last Pancast, we talked a little bit about Papozo, and I made Papozo two different ways. Browning the meat first, and also a batch where I didn't brown the meat first. And I asked you guys in the poll, if you make beef stew, Papozo, beef bourguignon, etc., do you brown your meat first or let the oven brown it as it cooks? Let's see, the votes are in, 372 votes. 88% of you guys brown it, and I think I am in that brown it category. 10% say let the oven do it, and 2% the funny, I don't know answer. I just microwave Dinty Moore, 2%. And I actually ate a can of Dinty Moore this past week. It was like being in grad school again. Everybody was out of town, and I was on my own for supper, and it kind of brought back some fond memories. I kind of do enjoy a little Dinty Moore from time to time. Along those lines, Happy Guy 11 is also asking, do you even have to cook any of it? He's wondering when you make a sofrito, the onions and carrot and celery, do you even have to cook that? What if you just dump everything in raw and let it go? That might be a good side-by-side test we can do some days. Dump it in versus follow all the steps. Who knows? Now, along the lines of this browning meat subject, I made some beef bourguignon last night, and there are recipes for beef bourguignon, kind of the official one in the Julia Child Mastering the Art of French Cooking cookbook. I made the one in the Staub cookbook, and I used the Staub Dutch oven, and I thought it did a great job. I did brown the meat first. And just comparing and contrasting these two cookbooks, we talked once before, and I got in trouble for this. I mentioned that I write in my cookbook. So I had made the Julia Child version all the way back in 2017. And I got my notes here, who was at the meal, and, cooking and tasting notes, what I liked, didn't like about it. So I like writing in cookbooks, and I encourage that. But I do compare and contrast the styles of these two different cookbooks. It seems like the Julia Child cookbook is more official, and I'm sure it contains tons and tons of knowledge. There are, probably 700 pages in this cookbook. The Staub is a little bit more high level, but what I like about the Staub cookbook is it has color pictures. And for someone like me, a lot of times when I make, for example, some of these recipes here, it will be the first time I've made them. And I like having a picture there, a full color picture, to let me know what the dish is supposed to look like. That way, I know if I made it correctly or not. I think there's probably more knowledge and more in-depth cooking skill in the Julia Child cookbook, but it is nothing but text on pages. And if I were giving out free $1 million ideas to the publisher of the Julia Child cookbook, you might want to come out with a new edition, update it with color photos, and you might be able to take content that is 40, 50 years old, refresh it, and make a lot of money with an updated, easier to use version of the Julia Child Mastering the Art of French Cooking cookbook. Who knows? And as far as differences in the recipe, Julia Child notes in this cookbook that there are many different ways to make the beef bourguignon. Hers, she boiled her bacon. I just rendered the fat in my bacon. I did not boil the bacon first. Also, she added onions and mushrooms at the end. The Staub recipe called for adding those at the beginning with the beef and then cook in the oven the entire time. And also made it in a Staub, and I did brown the meat first. Interestingly, in the Julia Child recipe, she browns her meat first, removes it to a bowl, then later adds flour and kind of re-browns it again to kind of toast up the flour. In the Staub version, you add flour to the beef, and the flour goes on the beef before the first time you brown it, and it's only browned once. So maybe some deeper flavors in the Julia Child recipe if you follow it step by step. But I thought the Staub recipe turns out pretty doggone tasty as well, and perhaps a few fewer steps. Let's see, I got a new computer. I got one of these Mac Studios. And not to get too far out into the technical weeds here, but ever since I started the channel, I've been using an iMac, and I think I got it in 2018, and I really decked that thing out when I got it. I got the upgraded graphics card with the extra cores, whatever a core is. I got extra ones there, bumped it up to 40 gigs of RAM, 3 terabyte hard drive, and that thing has worked flawlessly ever since I got it. But it was one of the Intel-based Macs, one of the last of the Intel chip-based Macs. Apple makes their own M series chips these days. They call them Apple Silicon, whatever. And but the updates these days, Apple update the operating system and some of the software. That older Intel-based iMac, even though it works fine, it won't update anymore. And I use Final Cut Pro to edit these videos. And I've also got an M1 Mac laptop. And what I like to do is, if I'm editing down here or recording this video, for example, using this Apple M1 laptop, I can't take that project back over to the iMac and update it anymore because the software won't update and it's different versions. Long story short, I paid about $3,000 for this guy. And it's got 64 gigs of RAM and the new upgraded processor. And I do have to say it is significantly faster, especially when rendering videos. So it definitely is an upgrade in terms of processing power. But I've been moving a bunch of content from the older Mac over to the new one. I've got 7 hard drives full of cooking footage and videos. And it kind of reminded me, we've been doing this for a while around here. I want to kind of check back in on some of the products we've reviewed. And in this video, we're going to check in on that Komo Fitibus Classic grain mill. I reviewed that guy, I believe, in 2019. So 6 years of usage out of that guy. Long-term check-in on the Komo. We still use it. We use it an average of once every 10 days, I would say. And that's been going on for 6 years, and it's been working flawlessly. So what we do is we buy the wheat berries in the big pails, and I usually get these from Pleasant Hill Grain, and we get, for example, the hard red, the hard white, the soft white, and my wife will kind of do a mixture of different grains, different wheats, and run those wheat berries through the Komo and grind our own flour, and it makes absolutely fantastic bread. But that Komo been working flawlessly for 6 years now. So I reiterate the thumbs up on the Komo Fitibus Classic. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time on Uncle Scott's Pancast podcast.